Ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Carloon, face-to-face interview discussing his greatest moments at last year's 7th in his career. Carloon, welcome. Thank you, Tom. Carloon, what is last year's 7th for you? You know, Tom, last year's 7th for me is the greatest moment of the year. I mean, there's nothing in wrestling better than last year's 7th. I mean, LYE, those 3 letters mean the moment for what we work for here in WCF. I mean, we work the entire year to get to December, to get in that card that night in late December and shine. And I gotta say, I've been privileged enough to be featured, in each and every single last year's 7th in this company's history. So that is quite that is quite a great moment. I mean, it's quite an honor to be featured in each last year's 7th in history. So, I mean, last year's 7th is, no doubt about it, the greatest moment of the year. It doesn't matter what happens, the entire year is a bad year or is a good year. When that night in December comes in, you are in for the ride of your life. That is last year's 7th. And Carloon, what about you telling us what's been the greatest moment, or one of your greatest moments, or your greatest moments in your career at last year's 7th? Well, it's kind of hard just to pick one moment, because each last year's 7th has its great moments. I know it sounds cliche, but it's just like that. I mean, each event has its moments, and each event is special for me. I mean, but if I had to choose just one last year's 7th, well, it's kind of hard. I think that wrestling Monkey Detonator 2 years ago at last year's 7th, my hometown, in a one-on-one matchup in our hometown, because Puerto Miranda is as well Monkey's hometown, but wrestling him one-on-one, maybe when I thought that I would never wrestle Monkey Detonator at last year's 7th, I had that chance in 2009. It was the first time in my life, in my career here in WCF, that I didn't wrestle in a title match at last year's 7th. So it was, so it was kind of weird for me, because I was accustomed to wrestle at last year's 7th with a title on the line, and not any title. I mean, the world title or the WCF championship, if that's not enough. So it was the first time that I wrestled a one-on-one matchup without a title at last year's 7th. So it was kind of special, kind of weird at the same time, but it was a blast. It was a moment that I will never forget. I mean, both of us in our hometown, a match to determine the greatest superstar of all time in WCF history. So it was really an incredible matchup. I remember just a little thing. I remember when in that match, I try to hit, in those type of matches, with such a great opponent, you always have yourself demand to have the best match you can. I mean, when you're wrestling someone as good as Monkey Detonator, he elevates your game. So, and even more if it is at last year's 7th. And I knew, I pretty much knew that it was a one-time thing. I mean, I knew that I was not going to wrestle Monkey Detonator at last year's 7th ever again. I mean, never say never, nobody knows, but you know, I knew it was something, you know, a one-time thing. I know that anything can happen, but at that time, and I'm still thinking that way right now, I knew that it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me to wrestle Monkey Detonator at last year's 7th. So, you know, in those type of matches, you just try to do just about anything you can to win and to impress the people and to impress even your opponent and elevate your game and have the best match that you can, because you know it's something that you just have the chance that night and that night only. So, I mean, I had a lot of pressure that night, and I remember, I have this little story. I remember I was just trying to do, I mean, so many things that I've never done before, and I said, okay, I'm gonna land a elbow drop from the top rope. I thought, well, this probably is gonna shock most people. I'm not a high flyer, you know, and I just thought, I'm gonna land this elbow drop from the top rope. I'm gonna impress everybody. You know, that Monkey had that elbow drop from the top rope, so I said, okay, I'm gonna steal his move. It's gonna be kind of cool, you know, doing each other's move to each other. So I did the elbow drop. I think most people remember that, but the fact is that when I landed, I don't know how, but I hit my nose in my own knee. I remember like it was yesterday. I hit my own nose on my knee, my right knee. At first, I thought, oh my God, I've got a broken nose. I said, well, this is pretty bad, because, you know, I thought I was bleeding, man. I didn't feel my nose. I thought, oh my God, I've got a broken nose. So I started, you know, touching my nose and trying to shake myself, and didn't see any blood in my hands, and I said, wow, unbelievable, I don't have blood, I'm not bleeding, I don't have my, you know, I just checked this bone in my nose to see if it was in its right place. Everything was fine. I was lucky enough, but it's one of those moments that you just want to do so many things. Maybe sometimes you cross the line a little bit, but you know, I think you always have to elevate yourself if you're wrestling last year's 7th, no doubt about it. But talking about some of the other great moments, Tom, you know, that was a blast. Maybe that was the greatest moment, I don't know, but you know, also the following year in 2010, when I wrestled Tom, it was the first time we did last year's 7th in Remember It. Last year, you know, it was the beginning of, you know, of some kind of expansion of last year's 7th, because if you see the first 2-3 years, well, the first 2 years of the event, we had done it in Port Trinidad, you know, 2006, 2007. For the first time, 2008, we moved it to Puerto Marno and then back to Port Trinidad. So the first 4 years of last year's 7th, 3 were in Port Trinidad. So we said, okay, we gotta change this. We gotta expand the event. We have other great cities in which we can have the event, not only Port Trinidad. So, you know, in 2010 it was kind of the first big step to expanding the event, so we did it in Remember It. And Wrestling Tom, man, I mean, my God, what a match we had. It was a no DQ match. You know, it was special. I mean, Tubman had been a dominant figure in the company in the last 3 years up to that point. And I've said this before. I always wanted to wrestle Tubman at last year's 7, but not always you can get whatever you want in wrestling. So I always wanted to wrestle him, but the situations each year, didn't help for us to wrestle at last year's 7th. So I really wanted to wrestle him at the event. So in 2010, the opportunity came along, and I said, okay, let's do it. We don't have to miss this opportunity this year. So ever since I knew I was going to wrestle Tom, and I said, oh my God, I have the chance right now. This is a moment I've been waiting for a long time. So, wrestling Tom at last year's 7th, it was a blast. I mean, really, I remember the pop from the crowd. I don't even think it was a pop, it was a roar. The crowd just erupted when Tubman came out. And if you remember, it was one of the greatest entrances we've ever done here in WCF, because it had 3 different theme songs that Tubman had used throughout his career up to that point. So it was 3 theme songs, one after the other, and the final one was the Graveyard Symphony, but it was kind of a theme song a little bit more, it was a remastered theme song, and so it was improved. And we had the pyro, so it was an entrance I will never forget. And I remember watching Tubman enter that ring that night. It was amazing. I got goosebumps. I was a little bit nervous. I forgot to accept that. And in reality, it was a moment. That moment, the entrance of the Tubman that night, that made my night for me at last year's 7th. That is a moment I will never forget. And and knowing that it was probably the final match Tubman was ever going to have in this company, had me a little bit more excited. So because having the responsibility of wrestling the final match of someone who's had an impact in the company like him, that just puts a lot of pressure on yourself, on your shoulders, and it was an honor for me to retire Tubman last year. He returned this year, but it was a moment that I will never forget. But those have been the last 2 years. I think, but as I said at the beginning, each moment, each event, each year has its own memories and its own special moments. Wow. I remember in 2006, wrestling the Shield in the main event, the first ever last year's 7th, entering as a champion, coming out of the event as the champion, retaining the title. It was an honor. It was amazing. 2007, for example, beating Christopher Rich, my hometown, to win the World Heavyweight Championship. Oh my God, that was a very special moment. It was the first time we did a show in a big stadium in WCF. The very first time was that night, last year, 2007. So it was really cool, and it was an incredible night, because it was special, because it was a different scenario, and we had the big stadium, Port Miranda Park, my hometown. I had an entrance that I'll never forget that night. And coming out as the WCF coming out of, of WCF's biggest event, I should say, as the World Heavyweight Champion at that time in '07. Oh my God. That is a moment that I'll never forget, either. And you're gonna ask me why I don't speak, what I don't talk about as I speak, why I don't talk about 2008. I know, Tom, but in '08, it was great. I mean, okay, I lost, but it was, it was another special night. Yes, I lost the first time that I tapped out. I lost to Chris Shooter that night, but I felt so emotional and so good that I was passing the title to Chris Shooter, and finally he won the title back from me after he and I battled in some of the greatest matches ever throughout 6 months, well, throughout 2008 as a whole year. It was the only time that we did a full year storyline. I mean, and up to this point it has been the only time that we have begun a year with two guys having a rivalry over the title, and they just happened to be in the same place battling for the title still in December at last year's event. So it was really something that it was the greatest feud that I've ever had in my career, no doubt about it. So yes, 2008, even though I lost, was incredible. In Porto Marno, big stadium once again. Wow. Incredible. It was incredible. Absolutely. It was amazing. And talking about this year, well, this year I can very well have the best match I've ever had. I mean, it's a three-way match. Shield, Brady, and myself. It's a huge main event. It can very well be the greatest ever. I mean, you have Shield, who's been the face of the franchise, the company, the last 2 years for sure, or a little bit more even. You have Brady Jameson, who's been a world champion before, who's been a premier performer in the history, overall, in the history of this company. Wow, two solid wrestlers. Two guys that in 2009, they rised to the main event spot finally after several years wrestling in the mid-card in the company. So, wow. I mean, these two guys have been two of the most important in the history of this company. And you add myself, I think we are three of the really good workers in WCF, and three of the great champions in the history as well. So you have three established stars, main eventers, in the biggest stage of them all, in the hometown of one of them, in Rumble, Brady's hometown. With the rivalry Shield and myself have had ever since the summer of last year in 2010, and throughout the entire 2011 calendar, both as leaders of our organizations, me as the Nasty Punks leader, Shield as the Shield's Army leader. So, I mean, Brady coming with a lot of momentum right now. He's never been WCF champion, so maybe, just maybe, he's the one who's a little bit more hungry about winning this match. We are right now really close to last year's event only 2 days away, maybe, arguably, but it will be another moment, and that's what it's all about. I mean, that's what it's all about. Each year in December, having the opportunity to shine, the opportunity to create new memories. I will try to be at last year's event for a long time. I will try and I will claw my way to keeping myself, at last year's event each year, because each year is a new experience. Each year is once again living the dream. So this year is going to be really special. I'm going to do whatever it takes to live as the WCF champion. I'm going to wrestle as if my life depended on it. I've said that before. And, may the best man win, but I'm going to make sure that I'm going to be the best man, as all the years, one little detail, all the years I have new gear. I debut new gear each year at last year's event. So this year, once again, I will be debuting new gear. It's going to be really special, something that I've never used before. So it will be a moment in history. So I'm ready. I've got to say that I'm ready. I'm ready to doing it. And I'm ready to leave the WCF champion on December 30th. This is going to be the greatest last year's event of all time, to close out the greatest year in the history of this company. Thank you, Tom. Thanks.